This will be a regular thing. Probably not every week, depending on my schedule, but hopefully most weeks I can just do one video a week and put the whole week in review. This week we're going from Monday through today through Sunday. Since there was no pay per view last weekend, obviously there was WrestleMania not long ago, but there was sort of a pay per view Friday. So there's actually a lot to cover. So I want to get right into it. Um, Raw was basically the same as SmackDown in the extent that they were just trying to promote and hype up the Greatest Royal Rumble, the GER. And there wasn't too much progression in any storylines, and there was a lot of throwaway moments in Raw. But I'll start at the top, work my way down. I may not have a lot to say, just because most of most of the noteworthy matches I think this week happened on the Greatest Royal Rumble, but there were some on Raw and SmackDown. First up was Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman coming out for a after victory I told you so promo, and basically to hype up the Greatest Royal Rumble and what Brock Lesnar intends to do to Roman Reigns inside the cage. And then Roman Reigns comes out and says, I disagree. Basically, I disagree. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to win the title. And there's no physicality. There's no nothing. Roman Reigns just turns around and leaves. And considering what we know happened at the Greatest Royal Rumble, like I don't know where they're going with Roman Reigns. I have no idea if he's even going to stay in the main event Universal title picture after the Greatest Royal Rumble. He really shouldn't. I'm kind of hoping that Samoa Joe beats him at Backlash and he kind of gets put in the upper mid card, go start vying for the Intercontinental Championship and do something there and open up the upper card for some newer talent or some older talent that is deserving of that spot. There wasn't much to say about that promo. It was a Paul Heyman promo, basically, is the only reason to watch it. Otherwise, it really didn't hype me for the match. I wasn't really expecting much out of the match anyway. Basically, what we got at the GER was, trading finishing moves and signature moves, and that was about it until the spear through the cage, which I'll bring up now. The spear through the cage, come on. Even storyline wise, even kayfabe, what did Roman Reigns expect was going to happen when he speared Brock Lesnar into the cage? Like, at the very least, if the cage stayed intact, Roman Reigns was going to have a severe headache. Like, that's just dumb. And the whole way that they ended it was dumb. And if they're going to spear somebody through a cage, like, couldn't they have done more during the ladder match than what they did? But I'll get to all of that when I get to the GER. Next up on Raw was Elias versus Bobby Roode. And my thought about Elias versus Bobby Roode is if you're going to bring Bobby Roode, who's a solid mid card, upper mid card talent, over from SmackDown, if you're going to bring him over to Raw, why bury him in the first match? Unless you're just saying that we're going to take the entire mid card of SmackDown away from SmackDown and put it up against the Raw mid card and just show you that our mid card's better. Like, that seems to me that's the only reason they brought all these talents over to Raw, because they're not really giving them any momentum coming out of the gate of this superstar shakeup. But Elias defeats Bobby Roode, and I'm not saying Elias should have lost, but it shouldn't have been a match between Elias and Bobby Roode. They both need, some enhancement talent to work with to get a win, even if it's an easy win, but a win nonetheless, instead of putting them both in a match where one of them has to lose. And in this case, Bobby Roode, he lost and he shouldn't have lost. Neither one of them should have lost, but that shouldn't have happened anyway. And then we had Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt in the back doing a promo, which I like what they're trying to do with these characters, meshing them together. I am not liking the outcome per se quite so much. They're not really. changing or evolving either character to mesh with the other one. They're kind of just throwing the two characters together and trying to edit their way through it, I guess. And especially with the theme music, it's just not working. Like somebody needs to change. And considering Matt Hardy's the one that won the Ultimate Deletion match, I think Bray Wyatt needs a look change. His music either needs to change for both of them, or he just needs to have Matt Hardy's entrance music. Even though I think Bray Wyatt's entrance music is better, if he's a face now, it makes more sense for him to lose that music as much as everybody loves it. Um, that's just my thoughts. And then they had a match with the Ascension, which was essentially a squash match. And again, people that were brought to Raw from SmackDown during the shakeup getting buried as soon as they get to Raw. It it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like all of the talent that has gotten shaken up needs to be given some sort of rejuvenating push, some sort of something to help them be a valuable get instead of just, well, we traded for the sake of trading. Um, I do appreciate the combination finisher with the tag team finisher that the deletion of worlds is attempting. The execution though to me is it just for some reason it just doesn't look right. I don't think the wheelbarrow position is best for Bray to hold up the opponent. I don't see it being safe going any higher, but it doesn't look right. Like they need to find some other way for Bray to hold up for a twist of fate, or figure out some way to incorporate Matt Hardy into a Sister Abigail, one or the other. And if they're going to keep the Sister Abigail, they need to change the name. I don't mean just call it Sister Abigail's Kiss. If Sister Abigail has been deleted from Bray Wyatt when he went into the Lake of Reincarnation, then they need to get rid of the term Sister Abigail completely from his repertoire, from anything he says or anything he does. He is past Sister Abigail. And hopefully we can leave that in the past for as long as possible to keep his character actually evolving past that. As great as that was for the first couple of years, it got old real quick, and he has needed this face turn for so long that I am a little bit fearful that WWE is going to fuck it up at this point. But maybe, maybe we'll get, maybe we'll just get him to do it better. Maybe it's taking him time to work out the kinks in combining the theme songs, and work out the kinks in combining the characters. Hopefully, they will continue to try to combine them better. Anyway, that's my thoughts on them. Next up was the the Sammy and Kevin show, which I thought is the best addition to Raw to come from SmackDown. Even though they didn't have this show over there, this show was great. Raw lost the uh, the Miz's show and the Miz to SmackDown, but they gained Kevin and Sammy, and these two are perfect for a quote unquote talk show in the ring. Um, Sammy was great. He has continued to just surprise me a little bit in his portrayal of the Sami Zayn heel, and I'm actually very entertained by him and Kevin Owens, and it's hard for me to be that entertained by a lot of what they present on Raw. So I'm willing to say this is probably the best part of Raw. So if you go watch any YouTube clips from WWE, this would be the moment from Raw to watch, where they interview Kurt Angle. And there was a great funny moment where I think Sami Zayn insists that Kurt Angle has 5 kids, and Kevin Owens is insisting that he's got 6. And they look through the notes that Sami Zayn has on Kurt Angle. It's just a very funny spot to find the spot where Kevin says, "Yes, you missed Jason Jordan. Remember Jason Jordan?" Yeah, that got some heat from the crowd. All in all, a great spot. It to true heel fashion against the babyface general manager Kurt Angle. they got a tag match at the end of the show with Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman, and we all know how that match is going to go if it goes clean. So I'll get to that. But next up was the Miztourage, or former Miztourage, in the back. That would be Bray Wyatt's brother. And I'll get to some interaction between Bray Wyatt and his brother, actual real life brother, on Twitter, if I remember to, hopefully later. But we had Bo Dallas, that's Bray Wyatt's brother. It slips my mind his actual name. Something, anyway. And we've got him and we've got Curtis Axel attempting to form the Shield with Seth Rollins, Shield 2.0 or 3.0. And of course, Rollins is not going for it. And then so later on in the show, I'll go ahead and review it now because there's not much to review. They try to do the same thing with Finn Balor and make a new Balor Club. Obviously, they feel like they need somebody mentoring them the way supposedly The Miz was, instead of just going off on their own or becoming just a tag team together without a third party. I'm curious to see if they do find a third party. And I'll just leave it at that for now. And that was backstage. And then in the ring, we've got Dolph Ziggler, and Drew McIntyre, who I am very hopeful as a tag team. I think the combination is good. They could be a really good super tag team. I don't know if they'll be used to their full potential that way, or if this is just setting up an eventual split between the two of them, so that basically Drew McIntyre can get a little bit of the rub from Dolph Ziggler, or maybe the other way around, as strong as Drew McIntyre looks and sounds on the mic. They squashed Titus O'Neil, and I don't know how long they've put into figuring this tag team out, but even if they were just thrown together after the Superstar Shakeup or during the Superstar Shakeup, I think they've done a really good job of meshing in the ring and figuring out their two styles together, all the way down to that just brutally devastating looking finishing move. The zigzag or whatever he calls it, Ziggler calls his finishing move, is just so much better looking with the Claymore behind it. It looks like it's taking somebody's head off and then crushing it at the same time. It's just really, really good. I really appreciate that. But I don't know if I see them going too far with this tag team. It just, because the only place they really need to go if they are going to stay an actual tag team for a while is to the tag team championships. And I really would see them easily being better than the Leader of Worlds and just dominating the tag team division and basically being the new bar and just bearing the rest of the Raw tag team division for over the next year. I could see that happening. It's just really good together, and I think that Drew McIntyre is going to be really good once they're separated. Especially based off of the promo, it was just great. Dolph Ziggler did a great promo. McIntyre did a great promo. I think what was great about Dolph's promo here is that his promos, as good as he is on the mic, he's always doing the same promos on the mic. He's trying to sell you on him in the ring, when him in the ring by itself should sell you on him in the ring. Seems like Dolph Ziggler's whole persona, whole career-long gimmick is trying to sell the audience on how good he is, even though he's doing that while he's in the ring and while he's on the mic. So, I don't know. To give him something else to focus on other than just reminding the crowd of how good he is and saying that he's going to continue to prove it, it was really nice. Now he can say that we are now the show. I like that, the show. They're not going to steal the show; they are the show. It was a great dual promo between the two of them. Then we had Chad Gable in the back with Kurt Angle, basically saying that he's hoping that Kurt Angle isn't going to stick him back with Jason Jordan when he comes back from injury, just to make that tag team again. And Angle's like, no, I brought you over here as a singles competitor, which to me is both good and bad. It's good because he is a good singles competitor, but it's bad because I would love to see American Alpha on Raw as a tag team going for the championships. I think that's where they both look their best so far since they've been on the main roster, and it would be great to see them go back and especially for the Raw Tag Team division, as good as it looks like it's getting after the Superstar shakeup and all of these pairings off, i.e., Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt and Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre and such. And especially if there's a new direction for the quote unquote Miztourage or whatever they become, the Raw Tag Team division could actually start looking pretty good compared to the last several months. And yeah, anyway, I think that American Alpha would fit right in with a really heavily stacked tag team division. But anyway, Jinder comes out and confronts basically Chad Gable and says, "Oh yes, I remember you. You're that little kid from WrestleMania that teamed with Braun Strowman. You've just gotten bigger." And then he calls him, I think, I can't remember. He just makes fun of him for being small. And Angle makes a match between the two of them like anybody didn't see that coming as soon as they were verbally facing off back there. Of course, Angle's going to say, "We settle this," bam, in the ring. So that match happened, and despite Jinder Mahal attacking Gable before the match, Gable fought back, and I believe he countered the Colossus into a roll up and pinned uh, Jinder Mahal, who is another great example of why are you going to bring a guy over, give him a possible fresh start just to bury him right off the bat. And that's probably going to be a continued theme on Raw. Just taking all these SmackDown superstars and saying, "Oh yeah, they're so great. Well, look how they stack up to all these Raw superstars." Um, I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. That leads to a bunch of SmackDown superstars getting together and forming a super stable to say that, hey, you brought us from the land of opportunity over to the land of getting buried. And that would be kind of cool, I guess, if they did it right. But then we had the Riot Squad doing a backstage promo. And to be honest, when I actually watched it, I didn't pay too much attention to it. It sounded pretty good, I guess. Even though I couldn't really tell, I wasn't looking at the screen, so I couldn't tell who was talking about what until Sarah Logan mentioned being from where I'm from, Kentucky, and being a hunter and a trapper or whatever. And then, oh yeah, I knew who that was. Anyway, and then we had Samoa Joe do a promo. I believe it was handheld camera selfie style. Only this time they didn't have the little graphics on the screen, the word graphics, which is great. I'm hoping that goes away slowly but surely and never comes back because it's just it's unnecessary and it's stupid and you're already supposed to suspend a little disbelief in all of this to pretend that it's real and to have things that they say that should not be getting put on the screen because they're supposed to be just going off the top of their head, not scripted, and they're on the screen. It doesn't make too much sense. So I hope that goes away. But Samoa Joe didn't get that treatment. Thank goodness that they didn't give that to Samoa Joe because he's being so good on promo right now that it would be a little bit of a disrespect, I think, to put the words on the screen for him. But he cuts a great promo. Of course, it had to be a promo because he's over on SmackDown. But again, SmackDown comes and he does another great promo. And I guess they're just really hanging their hats on his promo right now. Or maybe they don't want to put him into the ring too many times coming off his injury, even though he's cleared, make sure, it doesn't flare back up. But then we get Lashley and Strowman against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And of course, Lashley and Strowman won. And there's not too much to be said on this match, other than the fact that I think that Owens and Zayn have great heel heat. And I think Braun Strowman is the next big thing. I think Braun Strowman has got the best babyface heat, despite the fact that he is the atypically cheered by the Smarks crowd-friendly babyface right now, where he'll tag team with a child, he'll do the comedy gimmicks, and still be cheered. So I think WWE needs to at some point strap the Rock to this guy and let him go instead of just holding him at the bottom of the upper mid card, just waiting. Just they need to put the Universal title on him, and they need to let him hold it for a year and a half or whatever it takes to beat CM Punk's record, instead of letting Brock Lesnar do that, which it seems like they're doing. Which is something I wanted to mention. I think as long as Brock Lesnar's had it now, The fact that he's gotten through Roman Reigns 2 times in 2 matches that Roman Reigns was supposed to win. Um, they might as well leave the title on Brock Lesnar until he beats CM Punk's modern day record for days held. 400 and some odd days. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but you've already got it to like 380. So you might as well let him be. They did it with I believe it was Nikki Bella and AJ Lee's record for the women's title. They might as well, since they've had it on Brock Lesnar this long, they might as well just let him do it and get that out of the way. Because you know they're going to want to do it at some point. Just get it out of the way, put it on Brock, and then take the title off of him and put it on somebody, I guess, other than Roman Reigns. So I think that should be Braun Strowman. He did lose once already to Brock Lesnar, but that was as a heel, sort of. Even though most of us were still cheering him anyway. He's now babyface, top babyface Braun Strowman. I believe this Braun Strowman can defeat Brock Lesnar, especially if Brock Lesnar is a heel. With all this work that they've tried putting into making Brock Lesnar a heel that people will boo, just they won't do it when he's in the ring with Reigns because they want to boo Reigns even more. I believe if he was in the ring with Braun Strowman again now, Brock Lesnar would probably get booed out of the building in favor of Braun Strowman. So that's just my thoughts. The whole thing that I got out of the match was Braun Strowman is so good. They just need to let him be good, let him be champ, let him be at the top of the company, and I think they'll be just fine with this guy. For a big guy that's actually pretty good in the ring for a big guy, and then a big guy that you're like, well, he's all about the look. Well, then he gets on the mic or he does these comedy vignettes, and you're like, this guy's actually got a little bit of roundedness to him, and he's over. Organically over, or maybe it was their whole scheme to get him like this from the beginning, but whatever it is, he's over, and they need to embrace that finally. Anyway, up next we had No Way Jose come out with the conga line, which suspiciously is missing a bunny or somebody in a bunny outfit. I don't know where that had. Oh wait, that was Adam Rose. Yeah, somebody's not too creative. Every what half a decade you need to have somebody come out with a conga line of people, and it just so happens it's No Way Jose's turn. Well, anyway, who is it? Baron. Baron Corbin comes out, and he's supposed to have a match with No Way Jose, and I was like, well, this is a little odd. You bring up No Way Jose to get buried by Baron Corbin, or Baron Corbin's going to be yet another SmackDown talent that got drafted over to Raw just to be buried by the guy that just debuted on Raw, but is still better than a seasoned SmackDown veteran. But they didn't go that route. They didn't get him in the ring. They had Baron Corbin come out and say that he knows better than to get in a ring with a guy that surrounds the ring with a bunch of his posse, and he's not going to go in there just to get jumped by a bunch of dudes from the conga line. And he leaves. But he doesn't leave because once No Way Jose leads the conga line back through the stage, and for some reason, after he lets them go, he turns back around for one final pop from the crowd, turns his back from the screen, and out comes Baron Corbin and attacks him from behind. And hopefully this leads to a really good match, and I don't know who they would have win. I'm guessing they're going to have No Way Jose beat another SmackDown guy. Just a guess. We'll see if it happens. Then we have a moment of bliss where it basically cements the storyline, as if it wasn't already, but where Alexa Bliss is being the bully who's calling out the person being bullied as a bully, even though they're not a bully, and then tells a story of that's obviously made up of the person being bullied acting like a malicious bully while the bully stood around and did nothing. Kind of a classic story nowadays, I guess. But I believe Alexa Bliss tells it as well as anybody could with the lines that she's fed. I'm continue to be impressed by Alexa Bliss on a mic. I'm I'm not too impressed by the storyline they're giving her though. It's just it's a little off-putting, I guess. I don't know. It's just I think they could do better than a bullying storyline, especially with a company that's got Be a Star that's traditionally now supposed to be anti-bully. Um, but whatever. It's as good as it could be for what it is, I guess. Then we had Finn Balor and Seth Rollins facing the Miztourage. Actually, the Miztourage, not quotes in the air. They came out to the Miz's music. Um, I don't know why they would even do this. Even if they were like, well, we still kind of are the Miztourage as a team, so let's just take the. Well, Miz moved to SmackDown. His music should not be played. I feel like if I was live there and his music hit, and I didn't know that it was about to be the Miz Taraj, like I'd be like, oh, sweet, we get to see the Miz, even though it's a Raw show, and that would just piss me off as a fan. So I don't know what they're doing having them come out as the Miz Taraj to the Miz's music. They clearly turn their back on the Miz. Like they should be disgusted with using his music. Like it just doesn't make any sense to the point to where I almost wanted to turn the TV off. Just like I don't want to see this match where they're going to keep referring to them as the Miztourage. They are no longer the Miztourage. They don't have any rights to that name because they turn their backs on the Miz. Of course, I'm pro Miz, so there's other reasons why turning your back on the Miz should not allow you to use his music. But anyway, they lost, of course, to Finn Balor and Seth Rollins because they are a tag team that loses. They're not even enhancement talent really because they haven't been around and had enough success to be like, oh yeah, you get the rub off of me for beating me. No, they're just kind of lower mid card jobbers, and it really sucks for them considering their pedigree. But here's where I will mention the tweet between Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, where basically Bray Wyatt is like, why are you trying to look up to Seth Rollins or Finn Balor when you can come join us and be woken? And I would love to see that. But I have a few problems with that. First of all, he invited both Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, which I think is a mistake. They are, even though they're a jobber tag team, they are still a tag team. It's a conflict of interest to have one tag team join up with another, especially since Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt are actually the tag team champions, which means that even if they're just a put together tag team or a super tag team or whatever you want to call it, they are the tag team champs. To bring on a tag team that could potentially be opponents for them or even be just forced to be opponents to them is just dumb. But they could break them up by bringing Bo Dallas, of course, Bray Wyatt's real life brother, and that would make sense. It would give them something to do for a few weeks or a few months storyline wise. The breakup of the Miz Taraj or whatever they'll call them. They need to find some. I don't even want to guess what the name would be, but something to call them in the interim of dumping the Miz and no longer being the Miz Taraj, and then breaking up their little pseudo tag team to have Bo Dallas join the Woken Galaxy. Now maybe they're apart for a few months and they're no longer a tag team. Maybe then Axel can join. Where we all understand that maybe they're not going to be tag team anymore. They're going to be singles, or they're just going to be back up, or whatever. But to me, it doesn't make sense to bring them both together right away as a tag team because it just doesn't make sense. It's like DX didn't bring the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn into DX while being tag team champions. Triple H and Shawn Michaels. That didn't happen. They were both individual single superstars. Shawn Michaels was in the WWE title or WWF title pictures, and I believe Triple H was either the European champion for a while. He was the Intercontinental champion until he had to drop it because of his knee surgery. I believe he got it again. I mean, they were singles. They weren't a tag team, and it wouldn't have made sense for them to bring the New Age Outlaws on if they had been tag team champs. So Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy being tag team champs doesn't make sense to bring them both on. And I'm rambling a little bit on this, but to me, it's a really big point. It just doesn't make sense, and I kind of feel like they're gonna fuck it up and do it, and it's not gonna make sense. But whatever, I'll still watch. You'll still watch. We'll all still watch. If you're watching my channel and you're watching me talk about wrestling, chances are you're a diehard enough fan that you're still gonna watch, even if they do some shit that doesn't make any sense. because they do it all the time and we all still watch. Anyway, then we had a promo backstage with all 5 of the babyface women in the upcoming 10 women tag team match are being led by Natty into saying babyface promo stuff. And Natty was awful and everybody else was meh. And I think Nia Jax was pretty good. You know, that dominant voice that, you know, don't mess with Nia Jax, basically. And it was great. I think she was great. The rest of it was meh. Natty, of course, has no charisma in backstage promos. Her pedigree and her ability in the ring is why she is a great female wrestler. Not her charisma backstage, really. Anyway, I think it kind of brings it down a little bit. But then they go away, or the three of them go away, and you're left with Bayley and Sasha Banks. And Bayley just kind of looks at Sasha Banks like, "You hit my dog, I hate you," and walked away. And it was okay. Kind of furthers a storyline that I kind of wish had moved to SmackDown. I wish they had moved both of them to SmackDown. But, oh well. I just feel like if they'd have done that, then we had the 4 horsewomen all on one show. Could have done so much with that. And, oh well. Maybe the feud between Sasha Banks and Bayley will get so heated and so violent or whatever, so bad between the two of them, that Kurt Angle on Raw will just be like, you know what? I don't want you to be my problem anymore, and trade him off to SmackDown. Maybe. I don't know. That would be fun. You know, halfway through the year, do that. Let them go over to SmackDown, and then you can have the 4 horsewomen all on the same show, and then eventually you can, maybe by WrestleMania, do something with that. That would be awesome, in my opinion. But anyway, we had a 10-woman tag match that was just as much of a throwaway match as the 10-man tag match previous, up until the fact where Ronda Rousey came out to defend Natty, which we all see a Natty double turn. I don't even know how to put this, because she was a heel, then a face, then a heel, then a face, then a heel on SmackDown, I believe, in the course of a year. I believe she had, 4 turns. And she ended as a heel, but then as soon as she's drafted to Raw, she's a baby face because she's quote-unquote friends, used to train with Ronda Rousey. But we can all see the heel turn coming, which isn't a surprise and isn't a reason to put it into a storyline at all, considering she was just a heel anyway. So that was fun to deal with in the brain. And then Rousey comes out and defends her in this match and ends up getting the babyface team disqualified, and that's really all you need to know about it, other than Rousey's actually looking pretty suave in the ring, man. She's hopefully a natural and will take all of the hype and the heat and the build-up that she's got coming from just where she has in UFC and her background before coming to WWE, and she is going to look really good after that. Sort of how Kurt Angle was just a natural, and he ended up getting in the ring and looking so great for so many years that he built a Hall of Fame career in less than a decade. Hopefully that's what we get out of Ronda Rousey, and maybe that was the best way to end the show, maybe not, who knows. But it was basically a carryover show just to get us into the Greatest Royal Rumble, settle those matches, and then we'll have 1 week of semi-build for Backlash, and then Backlash can be done with, and we can hopefully start some shit fresh with some fresh people in each of the brands and get some new storylines going, and we'll see where that goes. But that was Raw. On to SmackDown, and I am 34 minutes into this video with not a single live viewer. That does not surprise me, but hopefully I'll get some on-demand viewers, or if my friends over at No DQ, hello Aaron Rift, gets me onto his channel for the week, maybe I can get some viewers that way. But furthermore, or to further the video, it is on to SmackDown Live, which I thought was a much better show than Raw, even considering it being a build-up show for the GER. Still a better show. I think over the last several weeks, finally SmackDown has really been a better show. It's always been hard for me to admit that Raw has been a better show. I don't know when it became me being a SmackDown fan, as if there was a reason to prefer one brand over the other. It's all WWE. It's There really is no reason to pick a brand like, but for some reason I've always just been, because SmackDown's the underdog, I guess, the B show, or the perceived B show. So anyway, it's been nice for SmackDown to actually legitimately be better than Raw for several weeks in a row. But it did not hurt at all that they started off SmackDown strong with who else but The Miz on the mic. That's right, Miz TV is now on SmackDown. So we get The Miz, and basically he says that his guest tonight, which I believe they announced prior, they probably announced it on Raw, if not before then. We knew it was supposed to be Daniel Bryan. And so The Miz is out there saying he's a changed man because he's a father now. And basically he's trying to play up being sort of a sarcastic, douchebaggy face, I guess. One that it would not surprise us if he went right back to his heelish ways, but somehow I feel like they're going to ride this level of tension where he's saying that he's trying to be a better person because he's a dad now, but he still seems to have those heelish tendencies or those heelish ways about how he says things and what he does. Um, I think they should really ride that out as long as they can. Um, Hopefully not as long as they've ridden out some of the things that annoy us. But I think it's working. Ride that out for a while until it's just water under the bridge, and we all assume that it really was Big Cass that took out Bryan on SmackDown, and instead it turns out it was the Miz did it before he came out for the Miz TV segment. But anyway, that's getting ahead. He calls out Bryan to basically say, "Look, if you still want to punch me in the face, then just let's get it over with. Come out here and punch me in the face." Which is actually, if you think about his character and you think back, I think 3, 4, 5 years ago, where he was coming off of doing probably his first or second of the Marine movies, where he's basically dodging getting punched in the face, does this a lot. The money maker. That's his money maker. So for him to call out Daniel Bryan and say, "Go ahead, punch me in the face," actually seems like him, trying to take a new leaf. But we'll see how long this lasts. Instead of Daniel Bryan coming out, though, we have Big Cass. And it was at this point I kind of figured, yeah, Big Cass probably took out Bryan at the back, because why wouldn't Bryan have come out? He knew he was scheduled. Obviously, he agreed to this, days beforehand. Why wouldn't he come out? Other than the fact that we saw, uh, Big Cass attack him during the match at the end of the show last week. So, yeah, makes sense. Big Cass took him out, and then he took his spot on the show. Comes out, and he had cuts a promo that I was actually surprised with, because I've never really seen Big Cass cut a lengthy promo in a way that doesn't seem very scripted and a little bit forgotten. But he pulled it off okay. Not perfect, but I have hopes that maybe that's what Big Cass was doing a lot in his time off rehabbing his injury, was maybe taking promo classes at the Performance Center and just getting better at delivering on a mic and sounding genuine and sounding like a real person instead of an actor. So, anyway, he cuts a good promo. Basically, The Miz plays off his promo the entire way, acting like there is no reason for them to be in cahoots or be together. And so does Cass by that matter. And I feel like they are in cahoots, but we'll see if that happens. Next up was Asuka and Becky Lynch coming to the ring, I guess, for their match. And they're the ones that sort of lead the camera into discovering Daniel Bryan being attacked and laid out. And so they're getting help for him. And then we have the Iconics in the ring to do a promo, which is just so bad that it's good. It's so bad that it's good because they're heels, and they shouldn't necessarily be great promoists as long as they're great at acting like they feel like their confidence is super high. They're cutting horrible jokes or horrible impressions, but they think they're great. And to me, that's great heel. So anyway, they cut their in-ring promo, and then we have uh, Becky Lynch and Asuka come out to have a tag team match with them. And we actually have Asuka lose 2 matches in a row. Granted, this was a tag team match, but Becky Lynch gets rolled up off of, I believe, one of the Iconics slams her head into the pole on the outside and then pulls her through the ropes and rolls her up and then uses the ropes for leverage where the ref didn't see and scores a pinfall on Becky Lynch. And Asuka loses vicariously since she's her tag team partner. So this is a little weird that they're not trying to build Asuka a little bit of momentum, that because just having her streak broken at WrestleMania was a huge loss of momentum, at least in my opinion. So I think they should have won that match, but it shouldn't have been against the Iconics. It should have been against enhancement talent, jobbers, the lowest of the low tier, the local heroes. That should have been who they beat. Either team, whoever they needed to put in that match. Either Asuka and Becky Lynch defeat jobbers, or the Iconics defeat jobbers. It probably would have made more sense for the Iconics. But anyway, then we have Renee Young outside of Shane McMahon's office. Even though Shane McMahon wasn't there, we just saw his name on the ball or on the door. AJ comes out as if he just had a interview with Shane McMahon or a meeting, and basically he says he is happy tonight because he's going to get Shinsuke Nakamura in the ring in a 6-man tag. Shinsuke's got Rusev Day as his partners, and we will see the two sweetness of AJ Styles' partners. And of course, when he said it was going to be too sweet, we knew it was going to be Anderson and Gallows. And there for a second, I was like, oh, wonder who his partners are going to be. Of course, it's going to be Anderson and Gallows. You forget that they got drafted over from Raw. But anyway, then we have a video vignette for Andrade Cien Almas. I guess he's going to be one of those that gets called up, but gets advertised for a while and actually builds them up a little bit for the people that don't watch NXT, so that they know who he is when he finally does debut and get in the ring. Which maybe will be after Backlash. I think at this point it certainly needs to be after Backlash. He doesn't need to show up and take up some TV time that they need to be building for the feuds at Backlash on the next SmackDown. It needs to be another, vignette. Or maybe he shows up backstage and cuts a promo that he's going to debut in the ring the Tuesday after Backlash. That's as far as they need to go with him. No more than the Tuesday after Backlash, I think. Anyway, then we had the Usos and Naomi backstage, where Naomi's trying to talk Jimmy out of the match that he's going to have with Rowan, just thinking that, she didn't see anything behind the eyes of Eric Rowan and Luke Harper when they nearly attacked them with the Usos, that is, with their hammers. So she basically tells Jimmy to be careful. Jimmy tells her to trust him, and then they hug and kiss. And then Jay comes in like a third wheel, and I believe when we come back from commercial, this leads into the match where it's a pretty good match when the Usos can get the upper hands on a team like the Bludgeon Brothers, and in this case, just Eric Rowan. When Jimmy can get the upper hand on him and actually get some movesets in, the Usos are so exciting in the ring. So it was a pretty good match, even though it basically ended a little bit quick with Naomi coming out to distract the Bludgeon Brothers, and then the Usos get distractions, super kicks on them, and eventually get the pin, which I guess is fine. It's not the Bludgeon Brothers as a tag team together getting a loss. It's just Eric Rowan. And I kind of expected it with Eric Rowan. It just seems like they push Luke Harper a little bit more when he's doing anything singles. So, yeah, I was okay with it. And it was an okay use of Naomi right now with her not having any storylines going on in the women's division. Then we had Carmella and Charlotte Flair come out for the contract signing for the women's title match at Backlash. And Carmella did a speech at the beginning, basically just tearing into Renee for calling her out first instead of the challenger. And she deserves better than that. And then she has us watch the video package she did last week again, and then the crowd didn't appreciate it enough, so she went to do it again. And I personally thought it would have been better to have I always forget his name, James Ellsworth, interrupt that video when they had the spot where she said the person that she owes, everything to. But instead, a little bit after that spot in the video, they had Charlotte come out and interrupt her. And Charlotte really didn't say anything. She just came to the ring. She sat down. Once she signed the contract, she gave her a woo, an old school Flair woo. And then Carmella took exception to that and held the title up in her face. And then Charlotte just reached up, grabbed Carmella's head, and smacked it into the table. And then flipped the table over on her, and she left. And great use of Charlotte. No words needed, just a woo. And it was an okay segment. Not the best contract signing I've ever seen, but not the worst. And then we had, let me see my notes here, Shelton Benjamin and Randy Orton. It was looking like it was going to be Shelton Benjamin and Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy came out, sporting sort of a limp from his knee being worked on last week. And I should have known it was coming. I was like, why is Jeff Hardy just standing at the end of the ramp looking like he's expecting someone? And then Orton's music hits. And I'm like, oh, this is what they're going to do. And Orton comes out and doesn't look at Jeff Hardy at all, but stands there for a moment just in front of him and lets him know, hey, I'm not even looking at you. I don't even care. Goes to the ring. And Jeff Hardy actually stays and he watches the match from ringside, which comes into play because Samil Singh comes out with a lucha mask on and attacks. I was just talking about his name. He attacks Jeff Hardy while he's standing at ringside, where it looked like Orton was about to throw. Who is he? He was about to throw Shelton Benjamin into Jeff Hardy. So Jeff stands up. Well, Samil comes out and he attacks Jeff. But as he's trying to run away, security blocks him in, so he gets in the ring. Randy Orton is distracted, hits an RKO on him, turns around into the pay dirt, I believe, is what Benjamin calls it. And Benjamin picks up the win, which essentially puts him into the U.S. title picture, which I like. It's a good use of Shelton Benjamin right now. Maybe you can even build him up to an upper card feud soon. Maybe not to actually get a title, but to feud for one. It would be nice to see. My decaffeinated tea here from Kroger. Get that at Kroger. It's great. And I don't do caffeine, so it's great to have tea that I don't have to make at home. And let me just put it that way. Next, we had the New Day backstage with their new old, I guess it's been around a while, but now they're finally promoting it, the New Day book. I might get it someday. I don't know. It might be worth a read. Maybe I'll just walk into Barnes & Noble and read the first couple of pages and decide that it's better spent elsewhere. But anyway, they're back there with their pancakes and their gimmick and their whatever and their oldness that is getting so old. And then the Bar walk in and assure them that this is probably the last they're going to see of the Bar, because at the GER, they are going to win the Tag Team Champions and go back to Raw. I don't think any of us saw that as a possibility even. We just all figured Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt were going to win the Tag Team Championships, and they did. But that's further on in this very lengthy 49-minute so far video. Next up was Daniel Bryan getting interviewed coming out of, I believe, Shane McMahon's office. And he had, he was in the trainer's room, I guess. Well, he had ice on his shoulder, and he said he's had worse injuries, but the person that attacked him was a big guy, Big Cass, basically. He calls out Big Cass for attacking him. From behind, though, he says. So there's a possibility that he just assumes it's Big Cass, and maybe it was The Miz. I don't know. This is what I think, but we'll see. We'll see where they go with this. But he gets a match with Big Cass at Backlash, and that's the extent of that. And then we have a Samoa Joe promo, and Samoa Joe is great, and I don't know what else to say. Unless he has a match and there's stuff for me to talk about there. Other than that, he's great on the mic, and I really hope Samoa Joe gets a nice top heel push on SmackDown. Hopefully feuding with AJ if AJ doesn't drop the title to Nakamura. But if so, we'll see. Anyway, Nakamura and the Rusev Day, who has just been booked and buried all the last 3 months at least, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. I have my thoughts about that though. Nakamura pins Gallows against AJ and the Good Brothers, and it was a good match. It was actually a really good match. I like the way that Nakamura got the blind tag to finally get into the ring at the very end of the match, just to basically deliver one finisher and pin Gallows. And then after the match, that's where the real storyline kicks in, because he delivers that super uppercut to the nuts again on AJ. And then while AJ is recovering, he goes for a Kinshasa, and the other Good Brother, the one that didn't receive the Kinshasa and get knocked out of the match, that being you had Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson comes in and basically bites the bullet, takes the bullet for AJ and takes the Kinshasa. And then Nakamura realizes that it's going to hurt AJ more to hurt his friends. So instead of doing a Kinshasa to AJ now, he does a second Kinshasa to Carl Anderson, where AJ Styles is just fingertips away from blocking it, but doesn't happen. So I thought that was a good ending to the match. What more to say? It was a good SmackDown. It was a really good SmackDown. I was really entertained. I guess I had some notes here between the Greatest Royal Rumble, but I wanted to get into the Greatest Royal Rumble, but maybe not match by match. I'll probably end up doing it by memory, match by match. But I just wanted to talk about, before I go match by match, about the controversy of it being in a country that does not allow women to wrestle, yet it's a company, the WWE that is very pro women's revolution right now. As far as I can tell, that this is a 10-year deal between WWE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to potentially do a show per year for 10 years straight. If by the end of this 10-year span, I believe they said Saudi Arabia itself has got a goal of certain things progressing over the next 12 years into 2030. It's called like the 2030 plan or something like that. If by the end of this 10-year deal, the women in the WWE are allowed to wrestle at the show that they have yearly in Saudi Arabia, then I think this will have been well worth it. If that is not the plan going in, to be able to do that at the end of this 10 year, or even 5 or 6 or 7 years before the end of it, at some point in the next 10 years, to be able to do that so that they are helping to progress the women's movement in Saudi Arabia, then this is a really terrible idea. But that's one of those things we're going to have to wait 10 years to find out. So hopefully this is one of those things where they're trying to be at the forefront of a progressive movement somewhere else in the world. And if the way to get in the door is to have one or two or a half a dozen shows that are just men performing before you can finally have the women superstars in the ring in Saudi Arabia, then I don't know. We'll see. But they started the Greatest Royal Rumble, with a ridiculous fireworks show. In fact, there was so much pyro here that I think it was a better pyro show than Mania had, really. There was a lot of aspects about the production of this show that were slightly better than Mania, and that's pretty good. So, call it a glorified house show all you want to. Still had great production. It was still a pay-per-view. Probably, as far as production-wise, the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. Easily. Because they're not going to give this much production to any other show. All the other pay-per-views this year, including probably SummerSlam, Survivor Series, are still going to have the Raw set. It's not going to have a set made specifically for that show like Mania does every year. This show had a set specifically made for the Greatest Royal Rumble. Even the Royal Rumble itself gets the Raw set. So this show was a big deal. Even if the matches weren't really presented like they were a big deal, uh, at least the matches other than the title matches, just for example, the start of the show was John Cena and Triple H that had no build up, no nothing. It was just, he's great and he's great. We're going to put him in the ring, and hopefully you're excited about the fact that they might have a great match. And it was a good match. It was kind of a throwback match to older style of wrestling, which I saw a lot of conservative wrestling in the entirety of the gear. I believe this was just a taste, just a real big taste of conservative wrestling right at the beginning of the show to maybe set certain people's minds at ease about what kind of show it's going to be. It's not going to be too flamboyant or too risque or anything like that. It's going to be a real conservative show. And I think that's what they tried to show at the beginning. And I would say John Cena and Triple H, especially Triple H, are two great guys to have put on that conservative throwback old style match. That being said, it was still just a good match. It wasn't, I think those two, like if those two had a match at WrestleMania with a proper build storyline wise, would have been a way better match, especially if it's Triple H. Triple H will allow himself to have a way better match at WrestleMania, even if it was the first of a 5 series of matches. Anyway, it was a good match. And then, I can't remember what was next. I think it was the vacant tag team title match for the Raw Tag Team Championships, where Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy beat the Bar, which was no surprise to me. Why put together Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy like this and build them up in the Tag Team Eliminator just to have them lose to a team that's on SmackDown? That it wouldn't be very good to have them come back to Raw, because Raw got so many tag teams. You'd have to send another tag team back to SmackDown just to balance it out, and it doesn't make any sense for the Bar to win. So we all knew that the Deleter of Worlds was going to win. Pretty good match. My same problem with their finisher, just it doesn't look right. But anyway, that was the match. I can't remember what the next match was, so let me just go with the matches that the ladder match. I know a lot of people are a little bit down on the 4-man ladder match for the Intercontinental title. I think if they're going to have a conservative show, other than the spot where Reigns spears Lesnar through the cage, if it's going to be a conservative show, then the ladder match has to be the best ladder match you can have without high spots. I think that's what they pulled off very well. Is the best ladder match they could have with the amount of time. I believe it had, 13, 14 minutes. With the amount of time they were given without high spots. I don't think they were allowed to have high spots. Because it really didn't seem like they had any super high spots with the ladder at all. Everything was very safe. And I think that was the match they had to put on, being where they were. So if I look at it that way, I have no idea if they weren't. Maybe they were allowed to have high spots, they just didn't. I don't know. But if they were not, which it seemed like they were not, if they were not allowed to have high spots in the match, then I think it was the best match they could possibly have, given the amount of time, considering there's so many matches during this Greatest Royal Rumble, and they really did manage to put it within 5 hours. I think that was the allotted amount of time. Had to have been just 5 hours, because they got it right at 5 hours. So they did what they could, and I think it was a great match for a conservative, safe ladder match. And if they weren't in a position where they had to have a safe ladder match, then I think, yeah, it was a lazy ladder match. It could have been so much better, but whatever. It was good. I liked it. I actually really did enjoy the match. So we had the tag team championship match for SmackDown, where the Bludgeon Brothers had basically a squash match where the Usos got a little bit of time to work over one guy or the other while one of the Bludgeon Brothers was down, which gave the match opportunity to have a little bit of second gear in it, a little bit of momentum for the Usos, and they really have the entertainment value for these tag team matches. The entertainment value for the Bludgeon Brothers is strictly squash match. Without a squash match, they're not super entertaining. Not like, let's say, the Usos and the New Day are. So that's my feelings on that. The Bludgeon Brothers won. Why would you have them lose? So yeah, it is what it is. Um, let's see, what other matches did we have? I can't even remember. AJ and Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it was a better match than Mania, other than the ending. They at least got into second gear in this match, but the ending was really shitty. It really sucked to have a. I don't. Why do you have a double count out? Why couldn't you have something that at least seemed like sort of a finish, like AJ Styles getting low blowed and Nakamura getting disqualified, or as they had Nakamura getting a low blow but not getting seen, and then AJ gets pissed off enough about that he blows Nakamura, that gets seen, AJ gets disqualified, Nakamura wins via disqualification, doesn't get the title, which is what happened, doesn't get the title, no title changes hand, and then AJ Styles defends against Nakamura at Backlash because Nakamura got a win via DQ, whatever, but still got a win. That would have made more sense. It would have been more predictable, but in some cases, the predictable way to go still is the right way to go. It's the one that makes more sense. They would leave everybody a little more happy, I think. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, I wanted to mention about the ladder match. As conservative as it was, the skull crushing finale that Joe took from The Miz onto the ladder was brutal as fuck. That was a cringe spot to watch. Not cringe because it was bad, but cringe because, oh, it looked like it hurt so bad. Anyway, what other matches? I knew I should have listed the matches for the Greatest Royal Rumble. See, we had the Cruiserweight Championship match. I think it was a good match for a Cruiserweight match. I just don't think that the crowd was very into it, and it really affected the match. It just didn't feel like a big match. Didn't feel like a pay-per-view match for sure. Um, I think it made sense for Kalisto not to win. It just, why have Kalisto get the title opportunity that close to the show and then win, and then just it it makes more sense to have Cedric Alexander retain for a little while. I believe until Neville held the Cruiserweight Championship. The Cruiserweight Championship was a bit of a hot potato title, just going from hand to hand. I think they need to have that one stay in the hands of Cedric Alexander for a while to build him up as the champion, because he really didn't have much of a build up becoming champion. But if he defends the title a lot and wins with no shenanigans, no cheating, no nothing, enough times, it'll give him some credibility as the fighting champ. Um, but it was a good match, not great. Not It didn't feel like a pay per view match to me, but whatever. Uh, let's see, we had the United States Championship match between Jeff Hardy defending against Jinder Mahal. This match was so forgettable to me, other than the amazing botch that we had in it, that during the 50-man Royal Rumble match, I was waiting for Jinder to come out towards the end because I'm like, oh yeah, Jinder Mahal hasn't joined the match. But then I remembered, oh yeah, he was in a match earlier. Psh, how could I forget that? Well, it was kind of a forgettable match. If anybody thought that Jeff Hardy was going to lose that title, you're crazy. Like, it just doesn't make sense. They're burying Jinder Mahal right now. I don't know why, but it's just his turn to get buried, kind of like Rusev. Uh, Maybe they're testing him. I don't know. It's kind of what I feel like they're doing with Rusev, and I'll get into that next with the casket match. But I think Jeff Hardy looked great as he always does, and retained the title. And there's not much to say about that match other than the botch. The botch was just great. Either Jeff Hardy didn't jump for the Whisper in the Wind in the right direction, or Jinder Mahal was severely out of place. But either way, Jeff Hardy didn't hit Jinder at all, and Jinder still fell to the ground. And I think Corey Matthews does the best possible job he can explaining away these botches during this show. He said, well, maybe he hit the mat hard enough that it kind of shook the legs out from under Jinder Mahal. I'm like, oh, just say that Jinder Mahal was going for an elbow drop and missed, because that's what it looked like. But whatever. It was a pretty funny botch, but not the funniest botch of the show. We had The Undertaker with a longer promo than he had a match, it seems. Not promo, a longer entrance than he had a match, it seems. Great Undertaker entrance, all the lightning and the lights and the smoke and the darkness, and it was great. But the match itself was, being somebody that got to watch a lot of really great Undertaker matches, I'm just disappointed in the WrestleMania match, and I'm disappointed in this match. And there's no reason to be disappointed because the Undertaker is getting up there in years, and I shouldn't expect a great match out of the Undertaker. I just expect that if the Undertaker can't put on a match that actually is entertaining, other than it being a squash against somebody, and in this case, you can't say that Rusev was buried too much by having a pseudo squash match with the Undertaker, because the John Cena had a squash match with the Undertaker. It's just, the Undertaker is better than a squash match. The Undertaker, if he can't put on a match that is entertaining like he used to, then maybe just be retired, man. Just, the legacy you leave behind is way bigger than a 5 minute match with John Cena, or a 8 or 9 minute match with Rusev, where you bury both Rusev and Aiden English in a casket together. And it doesn't make sense because it should have been 2-on-1, because there's no rules on a casket match. There's no rules. Aiden English should have been in the ring the whole time trying to help Rusev. If they're heels, and they're portraying them as heels, so, despite the crowd wanting to cheer for Rusev, they're still feeding them lines that insults the crowd, so whatever. But I wasn't a fan of that match. It should have just been chokeslam on Rusev, put him in the casket, close the lid. Don't do one chokeslam on Rusev and have him knocked out so long that you can do both a chokeslam and a tombstone onto Aiden English, just so you can put him in the casket too. You should have done the chokeslam on Rusev and then had Aiden English interfere, and then do the chokeslam and the tombstone on Aiden English, put him in the casket, Rusev get back up from the original chokeslam, then do one more chokeslam, put him in the casket, close the casket. Otherwise, it makes Rusev look so weak, and it did. It made Rusev look super, super weak, and I was not a fan of that. I can't remember any of the other matches for the GER. I'm sure there was at least one or two more non-title matches, but I can't forget the greatest Royal Rumble, the 50-man Royal Rumble. I'd actually had to watch this starting about 11:30 at night when I got off of work and got home. So I was already 11 hours behind on everything. And by the time I had watched it, I had seen some pictures on social media, on Facebook, and I try to scroll past so I don't get spoilers, because the John Cena and Triple H match was spoiled for me. So I tried to look out. But I did see a picture of Daniel Bryan being interviewed. And so when he started the match at number one, and I knew it was going to be, the GER, the greatest Royal Rumble, I was like, oh no, did I spoil this for myself? Like, Daniel Bryan's going to start at number one and he's going to win this sumbitch. So I went into the 50-man Royal Rumble with an eye on Daniel Bryan, because I knew that he was going to win, although he didn't. But he broke a record, and that's the big story coming out of the greatest Royal Rumble. It was Daniel Bryan's performance was just awesome. Elias had a good performance. There was a lot of people in there that, even though they didn't stay in long, they still had a good performance. And then Braun Strowman wins, and that makes sense, because Braun Strowman really is the next top guy, the next big name, the next big guy. He needs to be the next guy that they strap the rocket to. And he won, and he's going to get a championship belt that was designed specifically for this event, and he's going to get a big, heavy trophy that probably only he or the Big Show could carry, or Mark Henry, for the event, and then that's it. I'm hoping that they follow up on Monday Night Raw, or maybe after Backlash on that Monday Night Raw. I hope they follow up this, and for winning the GER, for winning the greatest Royal Rumble, they decide that they're going to give Brock Lesnar a shot at the Universal title. I'm hoping they do that. They might not. They probably won't. It seems like if they were going to go that route, they would have announced that beforehand. It would have given people more reason to watch and to be invested in the match. but that's what I'm hoping they do. I've got some notes on other things. For instance, the Titus botch. Funniest, best part of the Greatest Royal Rumble. I did, however, feel like a lot of people overlooked the fact of two things. One, in the situation that they were in, Titus's head came about this close to hitting whatever hard part holds together that part of the apron. Um, he was very lucky to go into the soft apron and under the ring as opposed to hitting his head on that thing. And second, if they had gone full out and had the LED boards around the ring instead of the soft apron curtain, he would have had a really bad time. He would have had a bad time if he'd have tripped and went head first. Could you imagine if he'd have gone head first into that light board? That thing would have given away a lot, and he would have done a lot of damage, and it would have been even hilariouser, if that's not a word, but it is right now. It would have been hilariouser, way more hilarious, or he would have gotten really hurt, and it wouldn't have been so funny. So I just wanted to throw that out there. As funny as it was, he was extremely lucky to land the way he did because he could have really, really gotten hurt. He had a lot of momentum going into that ring apron curtain. Other than that, I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, are down on the ladder match because they're comparing it to the six-man ladder match at NXT. Let's just say they are two different entities, and I truly believe that they just weren't allowed to have a high spot match. I don't know why I brought that up again. I was just reading it in my notes. I think the gimmicks were gimmicks in name only at the greatest. That's why I brought it up because it also goes with the championship match for the Universal title in the cage. I didn't talk about that match. Well, it wasn't a cage match per se. There were a few times where I believe Roman Reigns threw Brock Lesnar into the cage, but it was the real soft spot. There wasn't any crazy cage stuff other than Roman Reigns spearing Brock Lesnar through the cage. And what did he think was going to happen? I mean, you run the risk of spearing him out of the cage. Like, does he not watch his WWE network? Has he not seen where Paul White comes to WWF as the Big Show and throws Stone Cold into the cage, but then Stone Cold falls out because the cage breaks and he wins the match? Yeah. Not a fan of the ending. Not a fan of the ending of either of the championship matches on this show. The controversy should have been no controversy. They shouldn't have even brought it up. They should have just said, yeah, Brock Lesnar's back hit first, and that's it. He exited the ring first. Period. They shouldn't have even brought up the controversy. They should, if it was going to be controversy, don't even bring it up. If you're not going to use the now, if they're going to use the controversy come Monday or come the Monday after Backlash to say, hey, Roman Reigns should get another shot, then fine. But if you're not going to use the controversy, don't even bring it up. That's my thoughts on that. And I did want to mention with all these botches, it feels like WWE is breaking kayfabe a little bit in over replaying these botches, especially, the one where Bobby Lashley almost drove Big Cass, that brain buster they called it, where he was trying to hold him up for the suspended suplex, and he couldn't get him up, and so he brings him back down, and then he tries it again, and he can't keep him up, so he ends up dropping him on his head. I think they replayed that one. Of course, they replayed the Titus O'Neil botch tons of times. But the ones that look really nasty, they replay them, and they're like, oh, this is so brutal. Well, you shouldn't call moves brutal in a sense that they're supposed to already be brutal. We're supposed to suspend disbelief that they're helping each other not get too hurt and believe that the regular moves in the ring are brutal. So replaying botched moves where it just looks like somebody hurt themselves, and of course probably after the fact that they find out, oh yeah, they're fine, you know, it's okay to replay this. We're not replaying like Faces of Death where somebody just got their neck broke. Um, Look up draws if you want to see some shit like that. Anyway, yeah, I understand, you know, after the fact, knowing that they're still okay, you can go back and replay it. But to play it up is so brutal. It kind of breaks, to me, it breaks kayfabe a little bit because some of the moves in the ring that they don't replay like that are supposed to be that brutal. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I feel like Corey was the MVP of the GER. He took all the botches and everything in stride, and even all Michael Cole's stupid botches, including saying Sergeant Slaughter was the late great, as in dead, and he's not dead, folks. Corey Graves, I think, was the MVP of the GRR, and Hornswoggle was the actual winner, or he's the co-champion of the Greatest Royal Rumble match because he went through the ropes, climbed not even all the way to the top of the turnbuckle in the corner, and then got knocked off. So he did not get eliminated. Um, we can wrestle with that conspiracy that they're trying to keep Hornswoggle down. And the last thing I want to mention about the Greatest Royal Rumble at the end of my notes is I guess it was necessary to have the royal family or all these high up families in the front rows, and it must have only been them because there was so much of the floor layout that was empty. Just 60 or 70% of the entire floor layout, spots where they would normally have seating at a regular WWE show, were just empty, just concrete. Um, it was a little distracting to have some of the officials or whoever they were, the guys that had very matching long headwear get-ups, the long, I don't know what they're called, but they're almost like kitchen table. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, linens that they secure on their head. They all look very similar. I don't want to say they look the same. They look similar, but all these adult males, they didn't seem to really be paying attention to the matches in the ring. Like they didn't care. They were just there because they had to be. Most of them would be standing up, looking away, and I don't know if they were security or what. But if they had to be there, they shouldn't have been on that side of the ring. They should have been on the hard camera side. You shouldn't have been portraying every other moment of this match from that hard camera, where with audience members that just don't seem to give a shit. And that's how it seemed. It seemed like half of the males, not none of the kids were all into it, but none of the adult males in that area that is being shown the most even give a shit about the matches or anything going on. So that was my biggest problem with the show. They should have sat them elsewhere and put people that actually were into the match in that much focus on TV time. But anyway, I am nearly an hour and 20 minutes into the video, but I think I have gotten through everything this week. Hopefully I'll be back next weekend for Aftermatch Wrestling Presents After Week in Review. I will do SmackDown and Raw for next week. I'll probably do this before the pay-per-view, and then I'll get Backlash and then SmackDown and Raw for the following week on the next week's video. But we shall see. I might do this real late on Sunday night and post it on Monday, and include the pay-per-view, but maybe not. I will decide that next weekend, depending on my schedule. I appreciate everybody for watching. I hope you engage with me. I do all of these videos for one reason and one reason only. I want people to talk to me about wrestling, or that is, talk with me about wrestling. If you agree with me, that's great. You know, we can share opinions and agree with each other. Or if you don't agree with me, debate me in the comments. Find me on Facebook, Stephen Osborne. You can find me. I look like this. You can find me on Twitter, Stephen on R Osborne. If you're watching this on No DQ, you can find my YouTube channel, Aftermatch Wrestling. That's all one word, Aftermatch. And I just want to thank everybody for watching, and have a good week.